Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. We won't be joined by Hall for this episode. He's out doing errands, as a good husband should. Reed should be popping his head in here at some point, but the title of tonight's episode is Draft Game Plan, and we thought we'd bring in awesome guest, friend of this show, draft savant slash analyst. He probably won't call himself a savant, but an analyst of the draft, Mr. Ian Cummings of PFN. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. This cycle in particular was unique because I got brought back to it a little late, and it's difficult. But the circumstances, looking at where we're at now, had a few weeks to catch up on tape, and it's been a lot of fun getting back into it. And we're now, I think, under 2 weeks away, right? It's 2 Thursdays from now, so it's coming up fast, and a lot of anticipation has already been built up, and it's gonna be really fun to see what each team does on draft night.
Absolutely, man. And it's like riding a bike. Just getting right back on it and knowing how to do
Exactly.
it for you. Now we are joined by my co-host, Mike Reed. I haven't asked a question yet, Reed. So the first one I have for you, Ian, the cream of the talent, because in my mindset with building Washington, I want to build this team in order to beat Philly. And Philly in the trenches is one of the best built teams in the NFL at this moment. And so, I've hypothetically gone through of maybe adding an offensive lineman that could slide in either a tackle or a guard in that first round and still get a kind of defensive end. So, in your opinion, based on the projections, where is, the cream of the talent? Because some would argue, D-end 6 is not going to be as good as an OT3, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would probably inverse that for this particular class. I think the depth is definitely on the defensive line in particular. I think the offensive line class, if you did want to go in the trenches, is pretty strong, but there are a lot of offensive tackles who are kind of feasibly projecting to guard, right? If you're looking for a pure tackle, this class has a few of them for sure, and a few guys who I would let fail at tackle before moving to guard. But I also think after the top group of, Will Campbell, Armin Mambu, Kelvin Banks Jr., some people like him at tackle, some people think he's going to slide to guard, and that's kind of the conversation that you're having with a ton of these guys. Is
right.
Yeah, they played tackle at the collegiate level, but maybe long term they translate better at guard. And guys like Ariante Ursary, Marcus Mbo, Wyatt Millam from West Virginia, all of those guys are kind of in that same conversation. So it's tricky, if you're looking for a tackle in those early rounds. I would say that, if you really wanted a tackle, if you were really dead set on getting a right tackle, Josh Simmons, if you were to fall to 29, would be a great pick because he has that right tackle experience. You could feasibly get a guy like Braden Swinson in round 2. I know that's my guy. I know you like him a lot too, but there's others in that tier as well. There's Josiah Stewart. There's potentially Femi Oladejo. If he slips, we don't know if he's going to slip that far. Landon Jackson, potentially, we don't know how the board is going to fall. I could see him going top 45, but I could also see him falling to the end of the second round. So the variance is very high with this edge group, but there is a really big, I think there's a really big influx of edge talent in that, top 45 to 75 range, where if you wanted to get a guy at a certain position earlier on, I think you could pinpoint some targets later on at the edge spot. So I would say edge is probably deeper. That's probably where the cream of the crop is talent wise, and defensive tackle too. I mean, I know the Commanders got Javon Kinlaw in free agency, but if you wanted to add another rotational guy in the day 2 range, I mean, this class, I think that's probably, it's between DT and running back for the deepest class. The most volume of talent there.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about defensive tackle, because especially in the mid to late rounds, because I know Washington, I would imagine Washington's going to kind of go best player available just with the way that they are kind of built right now, and the kind of Adam Peters draft logic. They weren't scared to take defensive Johnny Newton last year in the second round, despite having John Allen and Deron Payne. But one of their big problems was run defense. I mean, we all saw that. Saquon Barkley ran amok over us. It was embarrassing. It was like Kyle at a buffet line, just running over everybody. Kyle's just so excited to get up there, Are there any of these big run-stuffing, thick old boys to help plug the middle and maybe in day 2, day 3?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love the phrasing because I think that's exactly what you need for sure. Alfred Collins from Texas is the first one that comes to mind in the day 2 range. That dude is, I mean, he's a monster of an athlete, first off. This dude is 6'6", 330 with long levers for arms, and he's explosive too. I mean, he gets off the line quick. That he's got not just the power and the strength of the point of attack to, encumber blocks, and he can two-gap, he can hold double teams as well. He's really, really tough to move, but he's got really good block ID and recognition ability as as well. And I think that helps him maximize those traits. But, he's got the toolbox to potentially provide more as a pass rusher. Right now, the hand usage arsenal is really raw. It's mainly just, relying on strength and power and that block shedding ability, which is really, really good. But right away, if you're looking for a run stopper, right, prioritizing the run defense, I think Alfred Collins is the kind of player who gets you that high floor on day one, like extremely high floor, because he's not just big and powerful, but he's explosive. So he makes contact first. He will hold the contact point, and then he can read blocks. He can make stops. A high motor guy who really will provide a high floor for you there. Tyreek Williams, I don't know if he's going to fall to Washington at the end of round 2. I would take him round 1 personally, but we've seen some mock drafts where he is falling to the end of round 2. And if he was there, I would run up the card for Tyreek Williams, even though, they don't have a massive need on the defensive interior with Javon Kinlaw now in the building and Johnny Newton and Deron Payne. But Tyreek Williams, to me, is kind of that hybrid nose tackle where he can play 1 tech, but he can also, stunt across alignments. He can play 3 tech and 5 tech, slabbing and run defense as well. So not as much of a pure nose tackle as Alfred Collins, but a guy who gives you more inbuilt versatility on the defensive line. My comp for him, and I've seen this thrown around from other people too, is, Aleem McNeil, who's become a very good player with the Lions. Now, he came to the Lions as a nose tackle. They've kind of moved him more to 3 tech as the years have gone on. So you got to have a long-term vision for that. But I think those guys stand out to me. And Kenneth Grant is another name, but I have a feeling he'll either sneak in around 1 or go within the top 40 picks. I don't know if he makes it to the end of round 2.
Yeah.
Is that
who's 50? That giant fat guy from Florida? What's his name? He's like 400
Cam Jackson.
pounds.
Cam Jackson. Yeah,
Plug
he's another.
On rundowns, don't let nobody's moving that fat old boy. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. He's another guy who, and there's a lot of players like in the later rounds who you could pinpoint as potential nose tackle targets. Like I know Cameron Jackson is one, 6'6", 330, I think, and he's immovable, right? But he's got some forklift ability on the attack too. So the farther down you get, the thing with Alfred Collins is he is raw as a pass rusher, but like he's a smart player. He's a smart physical player, and you kind of know what you're getting with him, and you can have some security there. So there's not as much going farther down the board, but there are some guys within that mold. Jamari Caldwell from Oregon is another one. Dancing bear athleticism at his size with the natural leverage, and around 330 pounds again. So there's different types of nose tackles in this class. The farther down you go, the less secure, the less consistent, the less guarantees there are. But I think a similar amount of developmental potential if you can get him in the right spot.
Yeah, and Alfred Collins, I remember thinking he doesn't look like he's 330. His body's very proportioned in the sense that it's almost giving like Aaron Donald vibes, where that guy's not supposed to be as ripped as he is being at that weight, right? But that's what Alfred Collins provides for you.
It's just a ton of lean mass.
Right. My next question for you, the commander, John Keim, had put out in his ESPN article that Washington is looking to add a dynamic running back that is possibly an every down back in the NFL. Can you give me some examples of some of those running backs that fit that criteria? Because after I watch these running backs, Ian, I'm not going to lie to you, that list is very, very small, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's relatively small because I think what you're looking for from an every down back is someone who is not just a good runner, but a good pass catcher and then a good pass blocker too, because you can provide value as a receiving threat.
Short yardage too, right?
Yeah, short yardage as well, but like also, letting your coach know that that he can trust you even if you're not getting the ball, if you're protecting your QB. So all the roles that you want that running back to fulfill, he can fulfill them. And there's a lot of almost matches in this class. Like Damian Martinez, I would call him an almost match just because we don't quite know what he brings in the receiving game at a high enough volume. I do think there are some flashes where he gives you the upside there, but the main appeal with Damian Martinez, for instance, is he's a great volume back who gives really good creative instincts and lower body flexibility in tandem with his vision and his physicality, and he's a really good pass blocker too. I love the way that he takes on blitzers. I think he's got the frame for it, so he's very competitive as well. So he'll give you security there, and we know he's a good goal line back as well because he's always driving the pile forward. The only question with him is the receiving ability, right? So you're not going to find a ton of 100% matches. I'd say the 100% match, and this is kind of a unique one because for Washington, they could be in a really good spot to pick him at 29 if it doesn't feel like a reach for them, is Travion Henderson from Ohio State. He's just a football player. I know it's going to be a little high for him on a lot of boards, and he's kind of in the 40s on my board. So it would be a touch high for me, but you also
Jahmyr Gibbs went high.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs went high, exactly.
Nobody
and I
thought
think,
he'd go that high. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen the evolution, in recent years. Defenses are playing more too high. They're to limit, deep passing plays, and in turn, the box is opening up a little bit, right? If you have a running back who can take control of that, you can really control games once you get a lead with the passing game. But then also, having a running back, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like he's not just a runner; he's a dynamic offensive
Right.
weapon, right? If you do look at Travion Henderson that's in the same lens, that could be a pick that repays the value and gives you the ROI you want. Because in my opinion, he's explosive. He's got that home run speed when he finds a seam, but he has really good vision and instincts, a good head on his shoulders as well. And he's low to the ground. He's compact, 5'10". He'll probably play around 210 pounds. So he's got enough frame density, contact balance, and then he's a great receiver, a versatile receiver. You can use him in different ways, and he goes toe to toe with anyone in pass protection, right? So he checks every single box. Is he
Doesn't put the ball on the ground either.
Exactly, right? So just a very, very safe, secure pick with the same amount of high end upside. Is he the hyper elite talent as a runner that Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson was? I wouldn't go that far, but he's a really, really good player who checks every single box for you. And I think teams are going to look at that, and I know there's been a lot of round one buzz for him. I don't know if he goes round one, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And I think Washington would be a great spot for him, because you go to the previous question, every down back. What is that? I would say Travion Henderson is by far the best match in this class. There are a few others that get really close. Again, Cam Scadaboo, can go back to him. He had 43 catches for over 600 yards this past season. He's a really good runner, not just with his size and obviously the best contact balance in the class, right? He can just bounce off guys straight up, but he's explosive too. He maxes out quickly in space, but he's one of those guys who will keep runs going with that physicality, with that tenacious urge. And, I don't think he's quite as polished of a pass protector, but again, the frame shows up, the natural leverage, the play strength. So you can project some growth there and get him to where he's going to go. You're never going to have a mentality issue with him as far as that's concerned, right? So, a lot of guys who are close matches. Travion Henderson, in my opinion, is the only one who's an 100% match. But I will say Damian Martinez, Cam Scadaboo, if you're willing to project a little bit of growth either in the passing game or as pass blockers, those guys are good investments too.
All right, I love you and I respect you, Ian, but I did want to refute the Trayvon Henderson every down back thing, only because we talked to Thor Nystrom last week, and he kind of talked about how Ohio State kind of learned early on in his career there that having him as an every down back almost led to injury with him, and so them combining him with Judkins. But the big question for me is, at OSU, the one reason why I didn't give him that label is because on short yardage situations, they always gave it to Judkins. And my whole point being is that because of what Judkins is possibly better? Because, like you said, when you watch Henderson, he doesn't have an issue with being able to create more yardage in this kind of low stature, low pad level areas, but they didn't use him in that regard, and that was like a head scratcher to me.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that argument. Quinshon Judkins, I would say one of the better areas of his game compared to Henderson is the physicality element.
Yeah.
I mean, my analogy for him has always been that explosive carving knife, where he's not as proficient of a creator, right?
That's good.
We know the missed tackles, per attempt, some of those statistics he's not quite as prolific in as other guys like Henderson and JT and other guys. But, he is a player who has good enough baseline vision. He is explosive, where he accelerates really quickly with those short, energetic strides. And again, being 220 pounds, moving that fast with that much energy, you're going to be tough to bring down in short yardage situations between the tackles, right? So I do think there is reason to, employ him. And we do know Henderson did have injury issues early in his career. So I think the durability is it's a very viable concern. I guess within the context of the NFL, right? We talk about every down backs, but also I don't think you should be relying on one singular back for everything as well, right? Fair. That's kind of the key, right? In the NFL, you have to have a stable of guys. So I think with Travion Henderson, the upside is that you can rely on him in almost every situation, right? But ideally, you have a 220, 225 pound guy in the rotation to take those short yardage duties, take some heat off of Henderson, let him do what he does best. So I think, it's a viable concern for sure. But I also think if you're an NFL team, the ideal scenario is that you're not relying on any one guy for 100% of the duties of a running back room. Ideally, you have guys who have contrasting skill sets, and you can play off of that.
Yeah, that's why Travion Henderson would make sense with B-Rob. Brian Robinson.
Exactly.
I was just about to say that as much as that could be the argument for the every down back, even if he's not using short yardage situations, we have a plethora of those guys on the roster currently at the moment. And personally, like the pass blocking is the big separator, because Omarion Hampton, you could say, is that guy who was used as a bell cow at North Carolina,
Yeah.
but his pass blocking is not good.
Right.
And so you could easily put Trayvon Henderson to say, look, he wasn't used as a bell cow, but possibly has that ability to do it and would get that dynamic label, right? Sorry.
Exactly.
Also,
Yeah. And
also,
as is always the case with prospects, like you can choose to project growth if you want. Like there are some reps where Hampton shows the necessary want to and the physicality at the point of attack as a pass blocker. But again, when you talk about technique, positioning, vision, some guys are just more consistent. So as an NFL coach and evaluator, what do you do with that? If a guy's an 80% match, can we get him there, or is it always going to be a limitation that'll come back to bite us?
Right. And two other things. I mean, it's impressive that you brought up Travion Henderson and Cam Scatabo, just because when you look at the way Adam Peters likes to draft and the way that they're trying to build this team, those are two guys that you for sure like. I don't know much about a lot of the running backs. I do know two things that I've heard. The things that I've heard about both of those guys is they're very good team guys and they're very good off the field. You don't have to worry about them.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the kind of guys that they want to bring in. So those guys, keep an eye on those guys, Commanders fans. There might be a chance that they bring them out here. So another position of need, people will say. I mean, you can never have enough playmakers, which is weird. Like we're talking about a defense. That's what held us back. Our offense was fantastic last year, and we added Debo Samuel. We added Laramie Tunsil, but there's still a need out there for another wide receiver, possibly. I mean, are there some guys maybe on the day two that have high upside, or possibly even early day three?
Yeah, for sure. I think my philosophy at wide receiver has always been it's kind of like a basketball team, right? Like you have your forwards, you have your guys who can be catch point artists, right? Like you got to have contrasting skill sets. You got to have guys who can play off of one another. And if you're Washington, you already have a wide receiver one in Terry McLaurin who can dictate attention from defenses and free up opportunities for other guys. So I guess how do you compound that effect and make it so that defenses are stretched thin whenever they're going up against you, right? They've got the wide receiver one in Terry. They've got Debo, who's probably going to be used mostly as an underneath threat, a rack guy, right? You can get him the ball in the short and intermediate ranges and let him work with that. So I think what you're looking for, what you lack now is one of those movement Z's who can separate independently, who can maybe provide a vertical element for you if you need and get some additional rack there as well if you want to scheme touches to him. So a few targets that come to mind for me in the day two range. Jalen Knoll is one from Iowa State. If he's there, I'm a big fan of his. Now, he's a fringe first-round guy for me, so I don't know if he makes it to Washington. He tested incredibly well. We know last cycle, Ricky Pearsall was one guy who was mocked consistently in the early to mid day two range on mock drafts, and then he ended up going to the 49ers at 31 overall. So, you never quite know how teams are going to value those guys who are elite testers with really good tape. But Jalen Noel, if he does slip, he's an explosive power keg as an athlete, but he's really unique to me because he's got the short area twitch and the reduction ability, the deceleration capacity, but he's also a long strider when he opens up seams. Like he can cover a ton of ground. He can stretch the field vertically. He's a really good rack threat. He's got the route running and the separation instincts, and he does flash the ability to convert the catch point even without elite size. So, looking at his profile, I really love what he provides and brings to the table. If he's not there, another option is Kyle Williams from Washington State. He's been a riser through the process. And I think in particular with him, one of the boons is that he can beat press coverage really well. He's got a really well-versed release package, the quickness, the explosion, not quite as elite of an athlete as Knoll, but good enough, dynamic enough. And he's got some slippery rack ability that comes with that. I think with him, you're getting him the ball underneath, but you're also allowing him to stretch seams because he does have enough speed. But I think the important thing with him is that in particular, he's got the route IQ to offset guys and then use his speed and space. So again, a player who kind of fits that mold where you can move him around a little bit. He can beat press if you need him to, but you can also get him going on drag routes and digs and in breakers and just let him feast with that rack ability too and stretch the defense thin. So I think, guys who can contend vertically, those are what I'm looking at for Washington, but also giving that separation ability where you can get them targets. If other guys are getting blanketed, you can shift the roles of the offense and the imprints through them and, kind of get that well-rounded offense. So this wide receiver class in particular, I think that day two range is a really strong spot to get them because last year's you had Marvin Harrison Jr., you had Malik Neighbors, you had Roma Dunze, Brian Thomas Jr. Last year, the strength was definitely at the top. This year, I feel like people have kind of dished on this receiver class because we don't have that elite blue chip talent, but what we're lacking there, I see, over a dozen guys that I would be willing to take on day two. Torrey Horton is another one, right? You could look at Alec Aomanor with Stanford if you want to take him. There's so many different. Jack Beck from TCU, a really good utility wide receiver, doesn't quite have the vertical speed, but should be a really good pro. It's all about what kind of skill set you're looking for, but this class does have them. So for Washington, it's just trying to find the right puzzle piece to put in that equation.
Yeah, just to add two more hats into the equation, Jalen Lane from Virginia Tech, 4.3 speed, was actually a punt returner for Tech, and that's an area of need currently for Washington, be a shoe-in fit. The other guy this isn't my legit question, but what did you think of Trey Harris from Ole Miss? We watched him on our draft show last week, and my goodness, dude, he has some highlights.
He is one of my favorite receivers in the class. I think he ended up as my wide receiver 7, I want to say, right. 7 or 8. I think he was just behind Jalen Knoll for me. So he's kind of in that same tier where fringe first round, I would take him in the top 40, and I think he can be a really good pro. I know this comp has been floated out there too, and I love to, make my own original comps, and I do look at, how these NFL players play just to see if they move the same way. And looking back to Allen Robinson, prime Allen Robinson with the Jaguars, I think that's a pretty solid comp for what he could be. 6'2", I think over 200, near 32-inch arms, and he's got the size profile for sure. And people kind of early in the cycle, I feel like they pigeonholed him as a contested catch guy because the body control is definitely there. The hand strength in contested situations is definitely there. But when I was watching his tape, man, the route running ability, I think really stood out. I think, whether it's a comeback on the boundary and he's decelerating really quickly or, faking an in-breaker and then hinging back out and creating space for himself. Like he's pretty fluid for his size, snappy with his feet. And then he can separate on quick in-breakers and get rack with that snappy ability as a route runner at the breaks. And he's not an elite vertical burner, but he's got enough long strider speed to at least make some plays in space and the grading physicality to pry through tackles as well. So, I think he's a guy who he's not really slept on anymore because again the production was elite, and I think he had the highest yards per route run in the class, right? So like he's a guy who makes the most of the opportunities he's given. I think he could play X if you wanted him to because he's snappy and physical through press, and he knows how to beat those one-on-one situations. But you could also feasibly get him on the move a little bit. I think he'd be really dynamic wide receiver 2 for you. And I like him a lot. You want you guys to be able to win at the catch point, but you don't want them to be relying on that. I think Trey Harris is the perfect example of a guy who really made his money early on with those acrobatic catches. He can do that, but he's also an underrated route runner, a decent rack threat, and I think a pretty complete player outside of that.
Absolutely. Go back and watch what he did versus LSU, not this season, but the past season 2 years ago, where there's one screen pass he takes for a touchdown where he just destroys 2 defensive backs with his footwork. And we did on a draft show. We were just laughing about it. Yeah. But Ian, to wrap this up, it's a new segment that I started with Thor called Gun to Your Head. And what it is, I'm going to ask you about 2 prospects, and you have to decide which of those are going to be the better pros. Maybe if you want to do it just for Washington or your own player eval, that's perfectly fine. But the first one I'm going to ask you about is you have to choose between Nick Scorton or Shamar Stewart.
Oof, that's a good one. That is a very good one. I would lean better pro. Shamar Stewart has the higher grade on my board, but I could see an avenue where Nick Scorton is the better pro just because he's got better hand usage. I think he's much more well-versed as a pass rusher. And I also think, more refined in run defense too. There's sometimes where Shamar Stewart's discipline gets away from him in both phases of the game. With Shamar Stewart, you're really banking on the upside projection, right? Because he's not always the best in, maintaining his assignments and holding gaps. And then his execution as a pass rusher is really unrefined right now. Even though he's explosive, he can pin and pull. He can do things like contain if you need him to with the size and the ability to take on those blocks. But I would lean towards Scorton being the better pro long term if I had to bet right now.
My man, next one I have for you: Landon Jackson versus Braden Swinson.
This is like trying to choose my favorite kid right here. This is crazy. I'm gonna. It's difficult because Jackson's projection, it depends on how his NFL team uses him, because Arkansas used him at 4i at times, but then they would use him at 5 tech and 7 tech. And at 4i, I don't think he has the mass to hold up there. I think combo blocks and double teams can wash him out. But if you play him at 5 tech and 7 tech, I think, especially as a 4-3 even front defensive end, I think that's where he would fit best. And I think if a team is willing to use him like that, I think he could have a really productive career. But I'm going to lean Swinson because I have a higher grade on Swinson. I just think, what he showed in his final year at LSU, I know those 1-year wonders, those late bloomers are always kind of scary to invest in, but I mean, he put that on the tape. 8.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss in the SEC. That's no joke. And he's explosive. He's got great bend at 6'3", 255 with over 33-inch arms. He's got a great profile as well. Probably an odd or hybrid front, outside linebacker or rush linebacker. You can, keep in that wide 9, and he can use that runway to accelerate and use his bend. But, he's got the hand usage. He's got a growing pass rush arsenal, and he's pretty sturdy against pullers and run defense too. So I like both guys. I think they can both be successful. Give me Braden Swinson just by a hair.
Hey, the kid can run, and he definitely has a motor on him sideline to sideline and tracking as well, to put that on top of it. Next for you, Amarion Hampton versus Travion Henderson.
Ooh, this is very difficult, man. Omarion Hampton has a slightly higher grade on my board, but I'm going to go with Travion Henderson as the better pro, just all around. When you talk about evaluation, and this is something that I may have to go back and see how my valuations are for Henderson, because it's been a couple months since I've graded him. It's always good to get a fresh eye on the grading scale and see if maybe I'm shortchanging him in a certain area. He's my RB3 behind Hampton, but he's just, he's a great pass catcher. He's a versatile receiver. He can take catches out of the backfield. He's got a pretty diverse route tree from the backfield, and you can split him out wide in the slot if you need him to. He can play off motions, and then his pass blocking ability, right? I think that pass blocking alone is going to win over coaches. I think the trust that they'll have in him just from day one is going to be a lot more. Now, Amarion Hampton, I think, going back to the conversation we had about, short yardage backs, volume backs, I think Hampton is going to have more responsibilities on his plate as that volume back off the start. Like early downs, they're going to be getting him the ball. They're going to be getting him going. But Travion Henderson is just such a complete player. And like we said, he's a high character guy. That. The biggest wild card would be injuries. If injuries flare up again, availability, it happens to running backs all the time. It's kind of a tale that we've seen over and over again. If that gets in the way, Hampton, I could see his longevity, kind of being superior. But Henderson, I think, is the more complete player.
My man. Next one I have for you. I'm not sure if you've watched this second guy, because in PFF didn't have him listed as draftable. But Dante Thornton versus Andrew Armstrong.
Oof. This is a tough one. I haven't gotten a full grade on Armstrong, but okay. I have seen some of what he has to offer at his size. I do think the foot speed as a route runner is pretty encouraging, and he's pretty productive in an offense that didn't have high quality QB play. Right. Taylor Green is talented, but was a little up and down as a passer. I'm going to lean Dante Thornton if I'm on day 3, just because Dante Thornton, 6'5", 200, ran a 4.3, right? We all know that part of it, right? But I also think getting out of that Tennessee offense could be a good thing for him, because I think you look at, the route tree is really rudimentary right now. We don't know if that was just what he was asked to do or, what he can do. But looking at the tape on some of his inbreakers, I mean, he's a really fluid athlete for his size. Some of the route breaks that he does, a lot of, not too many steps, a ton of footwork efficiency where he's just hinging inside right away, 1, 2, 3, plant and drive, and he's going, and he's channeling all of his speed through those transitions. I think the potential is there. And also on comeback routes in the boundary, some really good sinking capacity, flashes of that. So I think he can be a really good deep threat right away, a rack guy, get his speed and space. But I think he could become more. I really do. So day 3, dart throw, give me Dante Thornton just because of the elite tools.
All right, I only have 2 more for you. So let's do rapid fire with these. Yeah. Cam Scatabo versus Damian Martinez.
I'm going to lean Damian Martinez. I really like Scatabo, and it's a tough call, almost a coin toss, but Martinez's instincts for his size as a route runner, or as a runner, is just really, really incredible. And he's flexible. I think he can have a really good career.
And
plus, there's one major flaw for Scatabo. I'm not going to say what it is, but all 3 of us have it in common.
He's not the fastest guy in space, that's for sure.
Well, I was gonna go with, he's white. Yeah.
He's white. Yeah.
The one thing about Scatabo really took away is that he really pissed off defenders. I saw one DB try to break his leg at one point. I was like, he's
a beast, dude. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, like that, and that's a tough choice again, man. Like I love both guys.
Last one I have for you: Devin Neal versus Baishal Tootin.
Ooh, it's close. Give me Devin Neal. Devin Neal's such a solid player. Bayshul Tootin, home run threat, explosive, fast, but his vision and his instincts as a creator gives me a little bit of pause at times. The reaction speed in those congested areas. Neal has the spatial instincts that Bayshul Tootin lacks, and he's just, I think, a really solid three-down player. Again, he's shown receiving ability. I think he's got enough quickness and vision to last inside the tackles. Give me Devin Neal.
My man, Ian, I can't thank you enough, man. This was a blast. Being able to pick your brain a little bit more. It's always fun to be able to get information from you because I do agree with you about a lot of it all. But before you get out of here, just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, brother.
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me at IC_draft on X, formerly Twitter. We've got under 2 weeks to go in the NFL draft, but I help curate the mock draft simulator at Pro Football Network. So any ranking suggestions that you have, any comments on mocks that you do where issues come up potentially, feel free to hit me up and I'll be responsive. But then also if you have any NFL draft questions as well, feel free to throw them my way.
Literally 90% of what I learned about the drafts and prospects is from you, from the mock draft simulator and your articles. So
it's a great tool, and we're gonna go even more in on it next cycle. I came back pretty late, and I'm really excited to see what we can do with the next cycle with a lot more time to work with. It's gonna be fun. But I really appreciate all of the fans and you guys being able to chop it up again. It's been a blast to get back into the saddle, and I can't appreciate you enough.
Of course, Ian. I know that as soon as the draft is over, you're going to get back to it, looking at 2025 or 26, of course. But, Ian, have a great Sunday, dude. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Until next time, brother.
See you,
all right,
man.
Everybody. We just talked to the man. Dude, I love Ian so much.
I love Ian. He's like a internet Mel Kiper to me. He rears his head, but better. Yeah, way better. And he rears his head for times during the off season. Then he has to disappear and go back and learn, and then he comes back. And I love it.
Absolutely. And now we are joined by our next guest, who listens to our pod and heard that I said, look, if you want to be on the pod, come on down. And we got our man Xavier Marin here with us. What's up, Xavier? How you doing, man?
How you doing, Carl? It's actually pronounced Javier. I know it's very confusing with how it's spelled. I should have let you know sooner. That's on me, man.
No, not at all, dude. It's all good. Typical white people screwing up.
No, it's all good.
It's same old, dude. But kind of talk about yourself a little bit. Let us get to know you. You did kind of send me a message on what you're doing and everything, but I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, like I said, my name is Javier. I co-host a pod/show called PMFootball with my other co-host JJ. We started this pod because we have experience working in college football. We met working for ODU football. I went on to work at the Naval Academy for their football program. He went on to work for the Texas Longhorns. Kind of went our own separate ways, left the industry, and we're like, hey, there's so much stories we could talk about from our experiences and just our love for ball. Let's kind of start something. And we went on, started PMFootball, and we started that in July or August, I believe. So we're less than a year in and just kind of learning as we go, really.
My man. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you started that because it definitely sounds interesting.
You guys probably have some crazy stories.
Yeah, a good amount. Yeah, we talk about it a little bit on our show. We try to talk about it more often than we do. It being draft season, we're kind of just focused more on the draft now. But especially in season, we talked about it a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Who knows football better than you? I mean, Navy and Texas right now?
Yeah, I mean,
damn,
some pretty hot teams right now. So they were both ranked this past season. So no, they're both in the upward trajectory.
Yeah,
definitely.
Of course. And talking about Navy, rest in peace to Pete Medhurst, of course, which was terrible to hear about. Pete was on our show a couple months before and had no idea until I guess his wife updated everybody. But been praying for his family, of course.
Absolutely.
But, Javier, we like to answer fan questions to end shows here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the round table, of course. And so I'll either start with you or Reed for these questions. And we got a couple that were submitted. But the first one was by Tony Franchise. So I will start this with you, Javier. He asks, in the spirit of the draft, if there was an all-time skin/commander draft, who would be the number one pick?
Oof. Are we basing this off of what our team needs now, or just who our best player?
I think just best player.
I think yeah. If you're starting a team from scratch and
Yeah.
can pick anybody from this franchise, that's how I took it.
Man, I mean, there's a couple options. I know it's way before my time, but like Sammy Baugh, you gotta
Right.
get or Sonny Jurgensen, like start your franchise off with a starting quarterback. I feel like you also go Trent Williams, whoever your quarterback is, his left side's gonna be protected at all times. I feel like either of those would be some really good options.
It's easy. It's Jaden Daniels, to be perfectly honest.
Or
I know it's
that,
like
yeah,
it's
or
recent
that.
memory and everything like that, but
Yeah,
this kid is something
Skill
special.
set and everything. Like if they were
absolutely.
all
No, I
coming out and you could
yeah,
compare them all. I mean, obviously, I think you take Ball, probably just because like over his career, what he's
Right.
done already. But like if you're looking at them both as prospects coming out and
when
upside, you
you're
could
talking
say
about
Jaden.
just like physical attributes, like what they bring to the
Right.
table, there's
Yeah.
no doubt that
Yeah.
Jalen is just the most athletically gifted for sure.
Right. I like that. I like that Trent answer too, because that's probably something that nobody really thought about while he was here. And then afterwards,
Yeah.
like we've had some fantastic O lines, especially like we were so blessed having like Chris
Yes.
Samuels before that, and then like the Hogs
Yes.
just in general. But that's a premier position. That's a freak of nature athlete, the best in the NFL.
Yeah.
I could see that being Trent too, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was awesome when he was with us.
Yeah.
Even with the 49ers, he's still awesome.
Yeah, he's the man. It sucks that he got more recognition after he went to the 49ers than with us. Like we always knew we're like Trent's the
Yeah.
best left tackle
I
in the
mean,
NFL.
I think the problem was that we just weren't good. Like, of course, there's going to
Oh
be
yeah, yeah. We
all out on
sucked.
him
Yeah.
because, like, they're
Right.
actually good and he was with us when we were garbage. So,
Right.
like,
The
yeah.
moment he goes to the 49ers, they're like, he's easily the best left tackle in the
Yeah.
NFL. We're like, we've been
Yeah.
saying that for 10 years now. What are you talking
Exactly.
about? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember like what other fans were saying at that point. It was the dude from Dallas they were saying was better than
Tyron
Trent, and
Smith.
then
They always said Trent's not even the best left tackle in his division. We
yeah,
said
Yeah.
bullshit.
yep.
Yeah, he
I
is.
know he doesn't get that nod of respect until he leaves Washington, which is of course what we've been ripping our hair out about. But
Absolutely.
I think two players that deserve warrant for number one overall, I would say is obviously Sean Taylor. And then the other one being, without a doubt, is Darrell Green. And just if you could get a stable Hall of Fame corner for 20
20
plus years,
years.
yeah,
Right.
like
Yeah.
that's the one you go with. But the
Right.
next question we have, and I'll go to you, Reed, first. This one from Command D's Nuts on Twitter. Thank you, Mike. His question is: Morning, brother. I saw this asked on the Hogs Haven. What is y'all's dream scenario for the draft?
Ooh, my dream scenario is we can trade back, add another day two pick, and not trade back too far. Like somewhere in the 30s, early mid 30s or something, and still acquire another third round pick or some other sort. I don't know how it would fall out, but something like just acquiring more picks and trying to build. Because right now we need more early round picks if we want to continue to build. And this is a good spot to be in. Like even if we stayed at 29, like the way that this draft is, there's some meat in that area in the at the end of the first through the early third round. I think so. I think that you can still get some very good players, and with Adam Peters being a stud scouting people, I think that the more picks you can acquire, the better.
Yeah, for me personally, I think that if Mike Green were to fall to you at the end of the first, that would be the shoe-in perfect fit. I think that would be DQ's perfect kind of replication of Micah and what he had with Dallas. I think adding Mike Green in here would add that element of speed, power, and a run-stopping ability to really help this defense do what we want to be able to do. And then when the second round, possibly being able to move back with that one and securing Jalen Lane as a wide receiver, just because of obviously I'm me having a Virginia Tech background with my family and everything, but the punt returning aspect as well. That's a huge need that I think that we haven't addressed yet, and that's something you want to add, a game-changing type of player. And Jalen Lane, with his attributes of what he was able to run in measurements at the combine, is freakish, and it's somebody who was underutilized at Virginia Tech. I think you could really use here. But I also think that by trading back there, you could also get some more mid-round picks where you could add a running back like a Brashard Smith from SMU, who is a former wide receiver and played running back his last year and was absolutely phenomenal. For being a former wide receiver, his vision is incredible. Adding him in here, and also Devin Neal is another name to keep in charge of. But my dream scenario to end it would be by adding C.J. Dippre, the tight end from Alabama, either as a undrafted free agent or late round pick. I think he's one of the best blocking tight ends in this class. And if you want to bring back a physicality, a toughness to this offense that Joe, like with the Hogs, you add another tight end like John Bates in here, who you could use as like an elephant package, where against Philly, you're going to be able to move the football. And that's what I'm really invested into. So that would be my dream scenario. What about you, Javier?
I like both answers, honestly. I could see us trading out of the first to get more draft capital. You know, us only having 5 picks, we could really use it. But like dream scenario, I gotta go lean more with Kyle where we could get a premier edge rusher in the first. I would like to see if maybe like Travion falls to the second. We could scoop him at 62. If not, I'm also a big fan of Caleb Johnson out of Iowa.
So am I. I'm a huge Caleb Johnson guy too.
Yeah, no,
He's solid all
he's
around.
he's a
Yeah.
stud. So if we could get like a premier edge rusher at 29 and then at 62 get lights out running back, I don't care what happens to the rest of the draft. Like I
Hmm.
think we just set ourselves up for great success.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Now, the next question we have submitted by the Colonel, and Javier, I'll start this with you. He says, mildly surprised by the Josh Johnson signing. Is this to replace Jeff Driscoll? What does this mean for Reed's heartthrob, Sam Hartman?
Hmm.
What's really funny is as soon as I saw that, I did think of Reed because I like I told Kyle, I pretty much watch every episode I've watched for years now, and I
Hell
know
yeah.
the affection you have for Sam Hartman.
He's such a
Um,
dreamboat, dude.
See, he's watched us for
I
years, and
mean,
that's the one takeaway he took away from the show.
That's a
yeah,
good takeaway to have. Like that's a big piece of information because Sam Hartman is a gorgeous man, undeniably. It's like
I can admit he's a handsome fella for
he's a
sure.
handsome fella. He's a
Yeah,
handsome fella. I would not bring, I wouldn't bring my girlfriend around him. I wouldn't even
I
bring my
wouldn't
dad
either.
around him because you
Oh,
never know. Like he's such a good looking guy. It's like he could steal my dad. All of a sudden, I'm like, Dad, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you
Javier,
doing?
you didn't know this, but in high school, it's just ironic that Reed's wearing that hat, the waste management hat, because in high school he
It's
was
war
nicknamed
mode, Kyle.
he
It's
was
war
he
mode.
was nicknamed the CUM dumpster.
oh, really?
Sorry,
So
Javier.
you
You
No,
did
I
go.
not
was
have.
not. No, I was not. That's fake news. Kyle is going to be arrested right now. That's you're CNN. Kyle CNN Ronick. That's what they call you.
Sorry,
You're
Javier.
just
No, all good. No, this is pretty cool.
let's get back on track.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, when it comes to Sam Hartman, I he could stay on the practice squad, I guess. Like I don't really see a need to just let him go completely, but yeah, I don't see him being ahead of Josh Johnson in the depth chart. So I guess at this point he would have to be a practice squad guy.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. For me personally, Colonel, I loved Josh Johnson back when he played it for us the first time. His body type, the way he plays football, the long, kind of longish, lean kind of guy. But like, I was very impressed when he was. I think it was the Mark Sanchez year where we brought him in, and he performed way
Yeah.
better than
Those.
Mark Sanchez did. And I
Yes.
remember gaining a lot of respect for Josh Johnson. But what I ultimately think this means, Colonel, because if you were to say like Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, very similar skill set, they can run that kind of RPO aspect of the offense. With Jeff Driscoll, you kind of have that, but it's much more so like on a JV type level with just knowledge of Cliff's system. Whereas Josh Johnson fits that mold of what Marcus Mariota, what Jaden Daniels brings to you. So it's almost like your offense would be interchangeable if those are your three quarterbacks going into the season. For Sam Hartman, you feel protected with him going on the practice squad, so I do think that's going to be. And I think that at this point he's kind of okay just being in the developing kind of aspect. But I do think that this is something with Jeff Driscoll where he has to earn that spot because of what Josh Johnson is being brought here, and possibly one of those guys being trade bait once injuries come down the pipeline and somebody needs some more quarterback help. What about you, Reed?
Yeah. I mean, look. Obviously, Sam Hartman's a young guy. It's not like he proved much. So realistically, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if he's, it's not really going to be. But it also could give him a better opportunity to finally join male modeling. He can finally do that. Or just keep him around on the practice squad. Just keep him around. He's a good looking dude.
You
Doesn't
should
hurt
take.
to have some eye candy on the
Yeah,
sidelines every once in a
if
while.
he
Kyle
did
knows
that,
what I
you'd
mean.
take up photography.
Kyle, let me tell you, I would be Surge the shooter. I would be out there snapping pics 24/7. I already do. You don't have to know.
I know, I know. All right, now let's go
I'm the
to our
practice squad photographer. That's
questions in the Discord. This first one is by Deluxe. Which of the second year players are you most excited to see progression from this season? Javier, I'll go to you first. Jaden excluded, he says. Follow up, predict which second year player makes the biggest jump in production.
That's actually perfect. I think both questions kind of go with my answer, and it's Jazon Newton. I think now he'll be our full-time starter at D tackle, and I love the flashes he showed last year as a rookie, especially coming off like what seemed like a not too serious, but still a pretty serious foot injury slash having to go through surgery for that. So I would love to see a full healthy offseason with him to see what he could do next to Deron Payne in that defense, knowing the system better.
I'm with you there. I do.
yeah.
I do. The easy answer for me is Mikey. Samer still, just because he didn't start out at outside. You saw what he did in the playoffs. So you could see that confidence growing. I do disagree with Thor about giving him a chance on the inside, because as much as A.J. Brown might have been able to do a little bit more on him in the playoff game, Mikey did really well against him in Philly, or I think it was at home, where he did really well versus A.J. Brown. And I think that was our least of our problems facing Philly in the playoffs. I think the run defense was obviously the catastrophic element of our game there. But I think that's the easy answer for Mikey. The hard answer, I'll say, is Tyler Owens. We let go of Jeremy Chin, and so now we brought in Harris from New Orleans. So that kind of strong safety is something that you're kind of iffy about. You don't know if he's going to be full-time, right? Well, Tyler Owens was a stud on special teams last year. And typically, whenever an undrafted free agent comes onto your team, they earn it through special teams. So maybe this is a nod for Tyler Owens to really make that next step. So if I were to say who I'm really excited to see the ultimate jump in production, I would say it's going to be Tyler Owens, hoping that we can get a full season out of him and possibly some starting reps this year.
Yeah, I like both of those answers. I'm going to go with Brandon Coleman, just sliding him over. If he's taking over right tackle, which is, of course, the plan as of right now at first, that's huge. Just going from left tackle, a third-round pick, don't have much experience there because he played all over the O-line in college. Going to right tackle, where now you don't have to worry about Jaden's blind side, and you're still athletic enough that you can kind of keep up with this stuff. And remember, there was reports during the offseason and like during preseason and camp and stuff where they were like, Sam Cosmi and Brandon Coleman are the two best offensive linemen on this team. It's not even close. They're dominating every rep when they're in practice. So obviously it was a mental thing with Brandon Coleman, but switching to a less position where like you don't have as much stress, where you got another stud over there on the left side protecting Jaden's blind side, I think is going to be huge for him, and just another year under his belt. Hopefully he can really lock that right tackle position down.
Yeah, look, I've said this before. I want Brandon Coleman at right tackle, but out of respect for the DTs that we're facing in this league, I think that your best bang for your buck
Eventually you're good. Yeah.
Brandon Coleman being on the inside, having to go against those two massive guys in Philly and Dexter Lawrence, because you have to be able to replicate Sam Cosmi's production at guard.
Yeah.
And I don't feel you're going to be able to do, as much as everyone likes to talk about Wiley having good production as a guard in Kansas City. That was 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, this is a different era now, and all I'm saying is Brandon Coleman has the size, the mass to be able to work on the inside. But
the only thing is, though, what happens when Cosmi comes back at the end of next year and going forward? Then do you want to switch Brandon Coleman to another position, or are you going to switch him? Because either way, I mean, even left guard's a new position.
right tackle, I would move him to.
Yeah, but that's with 3 positions in 3 years. That's the Cosmi effect.
He's a smart boy, and he
is a smart boy. But I'm saying, so is Cosmi. Remember, they switched him all over the place. It was like, what the hell? Then he finally found a home at guard. We're like, all right, stay there.
But I will say that Brandon Coleman's probably used to it. When he was at college, that did happen a lot to him.
Kyle, you hate me. Everything
I just made a good point, okay? Now, the next question we have is submitted on Discord by Tim Towner. Javier, if we just needed one more player, then answer the following. Number 1, what position? And number 2, what player you can draft, trade for, or sign as a free agent?
Man, that's a really, really good one. One player. You know what? I don't think we could do it trade-wise, but I think we really needed an edge. We were just awful getting to the quarterback and stopping the run. If we had more draft capital and found a way to get a Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, like I was all in when the rumor was Myles Garrett wanted to leave Cleveland. I was like, you know what? He could be the missing piece. Like he could have been the difference between us beating Philly and us not being Philly in the NFC Championship game, I believe. I mean, yeah, we had a bunch of fumbles and all that other stuff, but I truly do think he's that much of a difference maker. If we could get a premier edge rusher on this team, I think we'd be easily the most dangerous team in the entire NFC.
And it would really help out that secondary, right? And I think that comes to mind.
How about everything? Yeah.
I think the easy answer is Minka. Persons out of Dallas. It would be the kind of perfect fit that you could bring in here. If you were going to say one more person to kind of keep eyes on and that makes everything easier on everyone else, like Javier said, absolutely, you go down the Minka route. The hard answer, I'll say, is Cameron Curl. Last year, we were putrid in run defense, and the one thing Cameron Curl excelled at in this defense was playing as an extra linebacker, being able to stop the run. Fantastic tackler, runs very, very well. And right now, strong safety is a question mark going forward. So if the hard answer, I'll say, is bringing back 31. But I know he likes staying warm.
Did he say we could draft anybody too? Like
yeah, I think so.
I'm going to go with somebody else because I like the Myles Garrett answer, and I'm gonna go with, you know what? Let's get old Dan Quinn his own Penn State linebacker wearing number 11. Let's go out there and get Abdul Carter. Just say, hey, you know what? Grow with Dan Quinn. You're Micah 2.0. It's all good. Just go out there, and as long as your knee's fine, you don't have to give up too much. Just go out there and then grow, build. You're a young player. Grow with this team and become dominant. Become the Jaden Daniels of the defense.
My man. That last question we have from Tim Towner. He says, currently we only have 5 picks, Reed, in the 2025 draft. Do you think we would use one on a tight end or running back? He says, I'm all about taking the best player available and not making picks based on positions of need, but I think that can be used to eliminate some players from contention.
For sure. Yeah, it can. I mean, the best player available, obviously, you're not going to take a quarterback, you know. So it's like, so there are a lot of things that are eliminated where you have established guys that you're going to have for years. But I don't think it eliminates either one. I think it does. There are needs, but if you're not drafting necessarily for need, you just want to get better. Yeah, I don't think it would really necessarily, like, if there's a player that should not be there, that's a tight end at 61 or 29. I don't think that that would happen, but I think that, yeah, you do got to take, especially running back. I think running back you can justify a little bit more in tight end, where you took Benson out last year, and you still have Zach Ertz, who's got, fantastic reputation with, or connection with Jaden. So yeah, I think it doesn't really take him off the table, but not as high as you might think.
Yeah, I was always on the fence about this because they have 4 running backs, but obviously you could make the argument that none of them are on contract for the 2026 season. And so you're kind of iffy about that on what they're going to do. But with John Keim's tweet and saying they're looking to add a dynamic running back in this draft, I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point. He did submit this question 4 days ago. So I will say it's a foregone conclusion now that they're most likely going to add a running back. But where is the big question, right, Tim? Because you have an abundance of running backs that could kind of fit that narrative. That is a small amount of guys, but is getting a Trayvon Henderson, using a first rounder on a guy like that, going to help you beat Philly? And I think that is my ultimate goal. I don't know what the team's ultimate goal is, but obviously that would take eyes away from Jaden, take eyes off of Terry and everything like that. But my big question is, are we going to be able to run the football fundamentally well in order for that guy to be able to operate in space? Because that was a big issue with our running backs last year. They couldn't get out in space. And when B-Rob actually had that chance versus Tennessee, he took it to the house. So it's hard for me to say where, but I would definitely say running back is going to be used on. I don't know if it is going to be later round or if it's going to be at 61 based on if they trade back or not. And with tight end, I think that somebody like C.J. Dippre and others, Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech, are 2 guys you could possibly target as undrafted free agents just to add in here with 2 phenomenal blockers that could just be a help in the backup to John Bates, if that makes it. Because we're basing our offense with John Bates' blocking ability a lot of times. And if you lose John Bates for whatever reason, injury, whatever, now you're going to have to change things around because Ben Sinnott can't block like John Bates. Not many can. But if you can add one of those really fundamental good blockers, that makes it a seamless transition, a lot like to the argument we were making about Josh Johnson, where you don't have to change anything. You could just substitute, so to speak.
Right. Or like a seamless transition where you turned into a man when you were 17 years old.
Stupid. What about you, Javier?
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think it's a foregone conclusion we will be taking a running back in this year's class. I would say probably in the second round or early day 3, I think will be the ideal spot. I don't know if we'll get a tight end. It's kind of hard with the re-signing of Bates. You have a young tight end in the room as well, and then Zach Ertz being the veteran he is. Like, I just don't know if you really would spend a draft pick on a tight end, but like Reed said, like if there's just a guy that felt he's clearly the best guy on the board, like it would be hard to not take him there. But I just don't really see us taking a tight end
Right.
this year.
What are the chances of that happening at tight end this year? Like
Exactly.
Tyler Warren's not going to be there at 29, and other than that, it's kind of just like,
Colston Loveland is right up there with him.
oh, for sure. Yeah. He's really good.
2 very good guys. They shouldn't make it to 29, but to your guys' credit, if it does come up to that point, maybe if they do fall there, and that's what the Ravens have a crap load of middle round picks. If they really want to add another tight end to their room, maybe that is some bargaining chips that we could use for the Ravens to hop up to grab a guy like that, and it wouldn't be too crazy detrimental to their draft picks to be able to move up with those, and we need it. We're in dire need of some middle round picks, which would be huge for this football team. But boys, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. If you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. I appreciate you for doing so. But before we get out of here, Javier, if you'd just like to plug your show, just talk about it a little bit more and your social media handle, just in case anybody watching, they want to come follow.
Absolutely appreciate the time you've given me. I co-host a show, PM Football. You could follow us on Twitter at PM Football Pod. We're also on YouTube and TikTok at PM Football Podcast. Me and my co-host, we just talk about our experience in football and like the things happening in football now. So we're really into the draft right now. And like I said, we started less than a year ago. We're just now trying to figure our way through this social media stuff, but we would really appreciate if you guys could follow and watch our videos. And thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of
Hell
course,
yeah.
man. I appreciate you for also listening and following us as well. It was
for
very
sure.
nice of you to say that. Not a lot of people will admit to it, but I appreciate you for doing so. You're a good man for doing that. All right,
No, y'all are a big help, especially like being in a facility all day, every day, working for a team. Like now, there weren't a lot of Commanders fans that I worked with, so y'all were kind of like my outlet to like, because y'all are in on the loop of everything. Like y'all know what's going on with the team, so like it was kind of therapeutic for me to like listen to you guys, be like, yeah, finally like someone understands like what my team needs and wants and stuff like that. So like
Hell yeah.
y'all are doing
Yeah.
a great job.
Usually it's just like people are like, Kyle's a babbling dumbass. He's a fool. And I'm like, I know, I agree. But
But he's
no,
damn
I'm just kidding.
cute.
Kyle's a nice guy.
He's
But he is
damn
cute. He's a good looking guy.
Yeah, very cute.
Good looking guy if you like vanilla ice.
Yeah.
Must
Tony, dude, I'll never let Tony live that down. Tony just
That was so
destroyed me that
perfect.
day. Yeah, it was. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up. And please go out and subscribe and listen to PM
Yeah.
Football. Be able to give them some help.
I'm gonna
And
listen to it.
'cause one of the things that really helped
Appreciate it.
us, what really helped us is like asking people just like what they thought and what they would like to hear more of and what we could fix and do better. And one of the biggest issues, of course, is always the sound quality, and which is one of the
Yeah.
hardest things to do as somebody who's recording something. We all know that. But just,
Yeah.
give them some hindsight, give them some insight, and just to be able to help and also listen and follow and subscribe, of course, and make sure you guys do that. I know I'm going to do that as soon as we stop recording here. But Javier, I can't
Appreciate
thank you enough for joining us, man. And you did a great job. Phenomenal. This is an
Thank
easy
you.
transition
dude.
for all three of us. Kind of like Reed when he threw away his dress. But I appreciate you
Kyle,
all
come
for
on.
listening this far, everyone
That
for
makes
submitting
sense.
questions. We love you guys. We thank you. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall. That'd be funny.
It would be funny.
Yeah.
Javier, you want to do it?
I guess I'm Reed.
There we go.
Yeah, there you
My
go.
man.
Hell yeah.
See,
I'm sorry. I feel
seamless.
bad for you, dude.
Seamless right there. Seamless.
Yeah.
Now I just
All
feel
right,
terrible
everybody.
for you.
We'll see you again, possibly Wednesday, most likely Sunday. We'll see how it goes down the pipeline. We'll keep you guys updated, of course. We'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.